Greetings and welcome to the Calm Analytics channel. This is MASKI Show. Today is June 6 and there is a lot of important news. The Russians have carried out their so-called strike of vengeance and already reported on it. Trump has found himself in a new scandal over his comments on Ukraine. And Elon Musk has declared open war against Donald Trump, pushing forward a case that could cost Trump the presidency. That case holds secrets that will make many people feel very uncomfortable. Meanwhile, drone attacks over Moscow are likely to become a daily occurrence soon. And we'll also talk about Gnilovlad and Tikhamor, how artificial intelligence sees Putin. We had a conversation with it. That part will come at the end of the program. There's a lot to cover, so if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss our upcoming episodes. So last night, Russia launched 407 drones and 44 missiles across almost all of Ukraine. Unfortunately, there are casualties and injuries. The ones who died were rescuers, firefighters, who were eliminating the fire at one of the impact sites. Here's how Trump once said it. "This cannot be allowed. Young guys are dying, guys just like your own children." Yes, the same kind of young people are dying, but what exactly is he doing to stop it? We'll return to that later. What mattered to the Russians in this strike of vengeance was to get as many of their planes airborne as possible, those Tu-95s, the Tu-160s, to demonstrate that Ukraine hadn't destroyed them all. They wanted to say, "Look, we took off and hit you with cruise missiles. These planes are part of Russia's nuclear triad, Soviet-era aircraft. Guess how many they actually managed to launch? 6 Tu-95s and 2 Tu-160s. Back in 2023, I checked the statistics. During attacks on Ukraine, Russia would launch 20 or more bombers and over 120 cruise missiles. So after their so-called brilliant Operation Web, this is what they could scrape together. 6 Tu-95s and 2 Tu-160s. So what kind of vengeance strike is this? They hit power infrastructure, industrial sites they claim were defense-related. But here's what we actually have. A hotel in Lutsk, where the Ukrainian athletics team was staying, was hit. A residential high-rise in Solomyansky district. Civilian infrastructure, metro rail lines. I haven't left anything out from this so-called terrifying retaliation. This morning at 5 a.m., I was coming out of a shelter. I saw entire families with children, backpacks, sleeping mats. Some coming out of metro stations, others from basements. People carrying cats and dogs in carriers or just in their arms. Kids with their little backpacks, clutching their favorite toys. Sleep-deprived but not broken. That's what it looked like.
Kids with serious faces. And I thought, who exactly are you, you dead-eyed moth trying to break? That's his biggest mistake and the final nail in his coffin. The idea that Ukrainians will react to horror the same way most Russians do. By the way, today marks the second anniversary of the Kakhovka Dam explosion, the largest man-made disaster in Europe since Chernobyl. Whatever Putin touches ends in catastrophe. Everything he touches falls apart, turns to rot. In nearly every mythology, there's a figure who corrupts everything they touch. They drain the life from it, turn it into decay, and everything around them dies. Later in the program, I'll tell you more about our conversation with artificial intelligence on this topic. We call it the touch of decay and Putin. It will be fascinating. Now to the main stories. Trump compared Ukraine and Russia to children fighting. You've probably heard this news. He said, sometimes you have to give them a bit more time. Here's his full quote. "You know, yesterday I spoke with President Putin. It was just recently. I told him this analogy. Sometimes, maybe it sounds pessimistic, but sometimes two children are fighting in a park. They hate each other, won't stop. You try to separate them, but they won't let you. So sometimes it's better to let them fight a little longer before you step in." Trump said he told this analogy directly to Putin. He also mentioned hockey. In hockey, sometimes they let the players fight before separating them. Makes the show better. What kind of person says something like that, comparing a war to a children's fight or a hockey match? All for the sake of the show. Let's not forget, Trump hosted The Apprentice for 11 years on NBC, playing the boss. That show helped build his successful businessman image, though it wasn't true. Just like Ukrainian TV once made a celebrity chef out of Mykola Tishchenko. Trump's idea of ending the war in 24 hours has now turned into let them fight a bit more. And what's scary isn't just that he said this, It's that he said it to Putin, as if giving permission. Let me remind you of what Trump himself said in February 2025 in the New York Post. I hope this ends. People are dying every day. The war in Ukraine is terrible. I want to end this damn war. All these people dying, young, beautiful people, just like your kids. 2 million already, for nothing. Then he said, Vladimir, stop. 5,000 people die every day. And now, let them fight a bit more. So another 5,000 a day, unbelievable. But it doesn't stop there. Trump also said the US could impose sanctions not only on Russia, but also on Ukraine. His quote, "If I see we can't make a deal, if this doesn't stop, that's the moment I'm watching for, will be very tough. But it could apply to both countries. It takes two to tango." Of course, both sides are guilty now, not the one who invaded, who refuses even a ceasefire. No, both are to blame. I've said it before, the word aggressor has been diluted, the word invasion too. Now it's both sides. Takes two to tango. You hear that phrase everywhere now. Enough already. You'll see, if you impose those sanctions, Putin will tango solo. He'll do the splits and somersaults if you snap your fingers hard enough. It's all about shifting responsibility, pretending it's everyone's fault, but still trying to collect the political bonuses. Two to tango. No pain, no gain. Strings of cliches to avoid choosing sides. And as the saying goes, the one who gets in your way might be the one who helps you. So yes, someone's in big trouble, and that someone is Donald Trump. American media is now reporting on the consequences of a full-blown conflict between Trump and Elon Musk, which has now gone public. Musk hinted at something huge. He said, "This will be a real bomb." You know why the Epstein tapes haven't been fully released? Because Donald Trump is in them. Musk wrote, "Have a good evening, Donald Trump." He clearly has inside information, but so far, he hasn't made it public. And that's where things get wild. I think you guys over there must be out of your minds. The Epstein case, bleh, it's just absolute madness. I mean, it's one of the loudest, most mysterious sexual scandals involving human trafficking, the involvement of minors, powerful politicians, millionaires, and even members of royalty. So, very briefly, and literally in 2 sentences, what kind of scandal is this? And why is it so wild that Donald Trump's name is involved? Epstein was a financier, a multimillionaire. He was buddies with everyone, Clinton, Trump, Prince Andrew, but the actual origin of his wealth is very murky. Here's the timeline. When the investigation began, it turned out Epstein was bringing children to his island, and what they did to them there, I won't even say here. It was horrifying. And when all of it came out, that there were dozens and dozens and dozens of such cases, Epstein was arrested and made the most scandalous plea deal with the prosecution. He pleaded guilty to a minor charge, served 13 months, and got immunity. So basically, it was a technical case. He did his time, got immunity, and for all future cases, even serious ones, he was immune. He got immunity from federal prosecution, not only for himself but also for his accomplices. That was the year 2008. The prosecutor back then was Alexander Acosta, who later became Secretary of Labour under Donald Trump. And in the year 2019, the case was reopened under media pressure. There was new evidence, absolutely horrifying. They found thousands of photos of minors in his Manhattan villa, a secret room with cameras. Just absolute madness. Then, on the 10th of August 2019, Epstein was found dead under rather mysterious circumstances. He was in a cell. The cameras that were supposed to be recording suddenly weren't working at that moment. The guards, who were supposed to check every 30 minutes, had fallen asleep and never showed up. And when those facts surfaced, people started saying Epstein was taken out because he had compromising material on dozens, maybe even hundreds of powerful politicians, businessmen and celebrities, not just from the United States, but from around the world. This gave rise to various theories, that he had built a whole blackmail network using minors, recording everything with cameras everywhere. I mean, to be blackmailed yourself, you'd have to be pretty brainless to start with. But still, with minors and his little recording rooms, he gathered dirt on these politicians and created a vast blackmail network. And one of the loudest threats toward Elon Musk is tied to this. The core of it. The Epstein tapes haven't been released because Donald Trump's name is on them. At one point, Trump called Epstein a good guy, but later they reportedly fell out over some real estate dispute. But this is a seriously painful blow. If Elon Musk now decides to go after Trump and spends the money he previously used for Trump's election campaign on discrediting him, with all of Musk's resources and influence, and his ownership of the social network X, formerly Twitter, it's going to be very, very serious. Another Trump threat emerged, that he might halt the mission of the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft, which delivers supplies to the International Space Station. Immediately, Steve Bannon, a Trump ally, reacted sharply and said, "Let's seize SpaceX by midnight through a presidential order." So yeah, major conflict there. And according to the latest report from Politico, Trump's aides have asked Musk to tone it down. Today, Friday, they're scheduled to have a phone call. And Musk, well, he should watch his back, maybe increase security, because there's even another theory, that the person who died wasn't Epstein himself but a body double. Anyway, it's a horror show. Clinton flew on Epstein's plane. People visited those islands. There's no proof they participated in anything, but still, it's horrifying, all the way up to royalty. In short, Donald Trump should be seriously worried. Getting an enemy like Elon Musk, with his capabilities, is a huge, huge problem. By the way, folks, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. In a few more episodes, we'll cover another case that could also cost Donald Trump his position. Meanwhile, the daughter of Keith Kellogg publicly addressed him on Elon Musk's social network X after last night's Russian attack. She wrote, "Loud night in Kiev, Dad. I have a strange feeling the Russians don't want peace, Jesus." She said, "Several Ukrainian cities were attacked. Russia wants you to believe it's retaliating. But Ukraine's precision strikes were in response to relentless Russian attacks on civilians. And only after Putin refused a ceasefire. He wants to keep waging war and take over all of Ukraine," wrote Megan Mops. Look, she's the president of the RT Charity Foundation and has actively supported Ukraine from the very beginning. There should be more voices like hers. And I think Keith Kellogg is actually pretty reasonable. We know that if it weren't for Donald Trump, sanctions against the Russian Federation would have been imposed long ago. But I don't know. Leave a comment. Do you believe there will ever come a moment when even if Putin captures a major city tomorrow and razes it to the ground, Trump will say, "Let's wait a little longer. Let them fight it out like kids"? Anyway, here's the next question. I've asked this before, haven't seen the answers. But if there are any Trump fans or people who support Trump watching, write down what arguments are used now to justify not imposing sanctions. Meanwhile, Moscow is preparing to alert public transport passengers about drone threats. Buses, metro trains, and electric buses will broadcast special video messages warning about possible UAV attacks. They showed a test video. "Attention everyone, drone attack threat. Proceed to the nearest shelter." At the same time, a map will show where and in which direction to run. And I didn't just pick this story at random. The capital of a nuclear state is preparing for a drone-filled daily life. That is, war is already knocking on the doors of metro stations, buses and Moscow homes. And who brought it by the hand? Who made it so that drones are now part of everyday life in Moscow? Where should people run? There are videos about that now, and somehow people get used to it. Russians will think, well, it's those damned Ukranazis. What can we do? They're the ones launching them. So this is a new level of adapting to war, and what comes next might be the complete militarization of everyday life. See how it happens, slowly, gradually. And of course, it's all our fault, naturally. And at the end of the program, in the block where I spoke with ChatGPT about the touch of decay, there'll be one particularly interesting moment. A monologue, a kind of appeal that Russians are strongly advised to hear. As I've already said, Ukraine will not be left alone with the Russians. Support will come from the West and from the United Kingdom. Recently, there was talk about 100,000 drones. And in order for all these 100,000 drones to find their legitimate targets, they'll need a large number of operators. That's why I'm continuing the fundraiser for our good old friends at Global Drone Academy. which has already trained more than 6,500 UAV operators, various types, including assault, FPV, reconnaissance, and many others. And they're still training. A new consolidated group just started, so they need supplies, lots of them. The donation link is in the description of this video. There you'll find the Academy's payment info and bank card number. If you're watching not on my channel, here's a QR code you can scan to donate directly. And as always, immense gratitude, both from Global Drone Academy and especially from the units that receive these high-class UAV operators. This is what modern war looks like. And Putin? He demanded restrictions on the use of foreign words, because apparently there are no other problems left. Putin has called for more aggressive efforts to combat foreign words in order to protect the Russian language. He said it's fundamentally important to eliminate vulgar, mechanical foreign borrowings that don't enrich but rather pollute and distort the language. He also warned that authorities must work seriously on strengthening the status of the Russian language and Russia's influence in the global humanitarian space. Oh my, look at that. Strengthen influence. Language in the global space. That's a direct signal. Shut down the Russian houses abroad. Throw those agents out of your countries before they start strengthening influence in their way. And we all know how that goes. Here's a star question. What has Putin's Russia actually achieved? What did it contribute during his time in power, apart from finishing off the remnants of old Soviet luxury? Name a few real accomplishments. Fighting Anglicisms. Now that's the priority. Everything's on fire, so let's go after the words. By the way, after the very successful attacks on strategic air bases, Putin met with Lvova somewhere in Gzhel, spinning around in shawls and launching a war against English loanwords. Fighting foreign words in the age of VPNs and TikTok? It's laughable. If you want to reject the West, reject everything. Can't say iPhone? Then don't use one either. Doesn't work like that. Same goes for Western cars. According to their logic, a direct pipeline into the LGBT agenda. Russians, have you lost all your so-called moral values? And now, the special block. Today's episode might seem a bit unusual. That happens, especially after nights like this. Once again, Putin showed who he really is. Just imagine it, one old man calls another. They broke my nuclear triad, can I strike back? And Trump goes, well, I'm the president of a great nation, let him strike. What kind of politics is this? Now, the block about how life has become better, life has become more fun. My training sessions with ChatGPT. We recently had, well, it's hard to call it a debate. I talk to it, give it material, analyse, draw conclusions, adjust. Basically, I'm training it. We discuss which mythological or game-like character Putin most resembles. Someone who brings death, decay, oblivion, darkness, a being that drains all life. It gave me several options. Just for a screenplay, mind you. I'm not saying it is Putin, but the traits match. Options: decay, rot Vlad, silent dread, everything dies quietly. His appearance is indescribable, a face that seems to exist, but you forget it the moment you see it. A body, a constantly shifting cloak of black mist and dry, cracking roots. Through it, you catch glimpses of rot, gold, or pale, ghostly skin. He spreads like mould across an old wall. He doesn't build, he devours and preserves. His touch turns people into faceless, passionless, will-less beings. He rewrites memories. Yesterday's hero becomes today's enemy. He lives in cities where no one smiles, where children are sad, youth are afraid to speak, and portraits of dead leaders hang like icons. He inhabits places where people write about peace, only to avoid disturbing the war. I asked ChatGPT to compose a monologue, a kind of speech from this character to his own people, and let me tell you, it was chilling. Here's what he said: I simply touch, and you begin to rot from within. I do not conquer, I soothe. I do not demand worship. I offer stability. I do not command. I convince you that you decided for yourself. At first, you'll just notice the silence. Then, that there's nothing to say. Then, that speaking is dangerous. Then, that there's no point at all. I feed fear with comforting rhetoric. I enchant you with words of greatness. I destroy cities and call it peacekeeping. I devour memory and leave only textbooks with my name. I live in those who sit in power not because they are alive, but because everyone else is dead. If you want me to leave, you must remember that you are alive. And remember, for being alive, you will always have to pay. That's powerful. There's more. I won't share everything now. But yeah, sometimes I glance around after working on this, just to check who might be watching. He can visualize all of this, though he can't directly use Putin's real face. That's not allowed. But I found a way to work around that. It's a fascinating process. Maybe I'm getting too into it. But for large projects, for organizing data, for searching, it's invaluable. And sometimes it's worth having conversations like this. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones. Let's all have a peaceful day. Support the fundraiser if you can. And of course, glory to Ukraine.